this idea that we should all be the same, and that if somebody is different, then there's something wrong with them. So children at that age are very egocentric, meaning they can only see things from their point of view. So to them, it's like, oh, this person is different from us. I don't like them. And then they do this. We want to be really careful about what we say to children, right? You don't want to use labeling words. You're dumb, you're fat, you're slow.
Yep.
But we just want to teach them to be decent human beings. So you want to
Understand.
like explore more, find out what they're doing, how they're reacting to the things that they don't like.
Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, once again, welcome back to The Little Pod, which is a podcast series brought to you by Little Lives, right? And in Little Pod, right, we will usually dive into topics that are very relatable towards like children, towards early childhood education, or even the education industry per se. And today, I'm actually very glad that we have this particular speaker joining us here today because she has been a very wonderful person, a friend that I know of, and also someone who cares for people a lot. Not just only because of the nature of her job, but generally because of how she is as a person as well, lah. Right? So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a clinical psychologist, Miss Lavender Tan, joining us over here. Say hi.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, so Lavender, I think today, right, we're gonna talk about a very interesting topic. I believe everybody will be able to, relate to it, right? The topic is, what if your kid is the bully?
Something we don't worry about until it happens.
Yes, correct. Yes, the big bad bully, right? I believe that throughout your work and also your past experience as well, you have worked with a lot of children as well as a lot of education in organizations as well. You have seen a lot of cases. But before that, right, can you tell us what you do in general? Because I believe a lot of people might not really understand what does a clinical psychologist do.
Okay.
I mean, typically, right, the problem here is that whenever people heard of clinical psychologists, they would think that we are able to read them by just looking at their faces.
Yes.
By the way, I get that a lot during CNY.
Right.
Yeah, aunties will be like, "Hey, Alvin,
you
can you check up on my son? I think he needs some consultation." And I'm like, no.
Like right here, right now.
Yeah, we need to go through a lot of sessions, a lot of things that we have to understand, right? Given I'm also from psychology background. Yeah, why not you tell our audience here, what do you do? What's a clinical psychologist?
Okay, so basically a clinical psychologist is somebody who has a master's degree in clinical psychology. So you want to check if you are looking out for mental health professionals. You have to make sure that they have a 2 years practice-based master's, meaning that they actually have practical training on site. So what a clinical psychologist does is psychotherapy. So we work with individuals in talk therapy to manage mental health difficulties like autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression. We also do psychological assessments, and that's what makes clinical psychologists different from counselors. So assessments are a set of tools that are developed to help us evaluate a person's functioning and symptoms. So for example, we run IQ assessments that allows us to be able to identify a person's strengths and weaknesses, what they're good at, what they struggle with, and how their mind works. So that's essentially what I do. I work with both adults and children. So with children, the focus is on either neurodevelopmental disorders, so autism, ADHD, learning disorders, so the diagnosis, but also the treatment, as well as emotional, social, behavioral difficulties.
Got it. So I think from the highlights that I'm hearing right now is that for clinical psychologists, right, basically a lot of assessments, more assessments compared to counselors.
Yes, typically counselors don't do assessments.
Right. And I see. Yeah. I mean, that's already a point because I I believe a lot of people cannot differentiate between these two as well, right? Sometimes people might think that, you know, going to a counselor is like going to like a clinical psychologist already. They would automatically assume that, oh, you must be having some serious problem. Okay, but also not to mislead our audience, right? Going to clinical psychologist doesn't necessarily mean that
Yeah.
you are in like a very bad state or whatnot, right?
So there's like a shared population lah. So we like to say it's a red, orange, and green light. So typically psychiatrists predominantly work in the red light zone, where people have quite significantly impaired functioning and they need medication. Clinical psychologists and also psychiatrists work in the orange zone, which is where people have mental health difficulties and struggles, and then counselors work more in the green zone, which is when it's more like stress or relationship difficulties or figuring out your career.
Understand. Got it. Yeah. So today's topic, what if your kid is a bully? I think this is a very interesting one, because I believe my first experience of being bullied, not being a bully, okay, right, was as early as I think 5 years old. When I was in kindergarten, I believe.
That's very young.
Yeah. And my perception towards bully at that point was because I was boycotted by like a group of children.
So multiple bullies, right? It's
Yes.
often not just one. It's often a group.
Yes, correct. Yes. And the form of bully at that point, when I perceive, right, it's not really like any physical, it's nothing physical, but rather it's like I felt so emotionally in a way distressed, right? Because my friends doesn't want to talk to me, and I knew that they are grouping up to not talk to me, even though at the age of 5 or 6, right?
So they're ostracizing you.
Correct. Yes. So I was just wondering, right, when it comes to bully, like, what's your opinion towards it? Like, what are the possible cause, or why would someone became a bully?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it really
From a clinical psychologist perspective.
it really depends on the situation. So I have encountered a lot of the situation that you described. I've encountered it from the person who was the bully as well as the person who was bullied. And it seems like a lot of times, especially early on, they just don't know any better. They were not taught how to be empathetic, understanding. So children at that age are very egocentric, meaning they can only see things from their point of view. So to them, it's like, oh, this person is different from us. I don't like them. And then they do this. Or they think it's funny. I have heard people as adults will reflect back and say, oh my gosh, I just, like, it took me a while, but like when I'm an adult and I think back to how I treated this boy in my class, like I realized I was a bully. Right? So they don't see it. They just think, like, and when you ask them what was going through your mind at that time, like, why did you do that? They'll say either my friends were doing it, you know, nobody liked him, he said something to me, or he said something to my friend, or I have even heard people say we were bored, we thought it would be funny. So they don't see the impact of it. They don't see how damaging it can be to the other person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at that age, probably we are not aware of what we have done, right? Could be harmful to anybody else.
True.
Right. So in that case, right, just maybe tapping onto that. So since they are not aware, like, what do you think in terms of what the parents can do or observe or trying to understand to really figure it out if, you know, my child is a bully?
How can they detect it?
Yeah. How can they detect it?
That's the thing, because they don't really know. They don't realize they're doing something wrong. So they're more likely to tell you, right? So you can usually gauge from the stories that they tell you. So you might ask them like, oh, what happened today at school? What were you doing? If they start expressing things like, yeah, you know, we wanted to play on the playground, but then Jamie came, he wanted to play with us, so we all ran away. That's already a sign, right? You have to capture that, right? And you actually want to have conversations with them to understand what's going on. Other things you can notice are how they treat children around them when you're around. So this can be like cousins, maybe other friends, like when you hang out with other parents with their children, if they say things like, yeah, I don't want to hang out with her because she's fat or she's smelly, they start having these kind of prejudiced speech, you want to pick up on it, because even if they're not actively bullying someone, it's not healthy for them to have these kind of thoughts and to sort of shun people. We're not saying that you have to be best friends with everybody,
Yeah.
but children need to be taught that they need to be empathetic and understanding and kind to people, right? They don't necessarily realize it.
Understand. Yeah, I guess this is the part that is pretty difficult, because like for example just now you said, okay, maybe other kids are smelly, that's why my child doesn't want to play with him. But I think coming from a parent's point of view, right, it could be slightly difficult to detect, because what if my children is really, it's not that the other children is the problem, but maybe my child is really disliking the smell. And so is there like any guideline or anything, like the frequency of the children doing so, or any severity that parents can actually look out for?
I think you want to look out for how they are behaving, right? So let's say if you say, okay, I understand you're sensitive to how this child smiles, or like how Timmy smiles, or what do you do? Then he'll be like, when he comes to me, then I run away, I close my nose and run away, right? So then that's quite significant already. Versus if he tells you, I'm nice to him for a while, then I pretend I have to go away. Okay lah, at least you can see he's being polite, right?
Yeah.
So we also don't want to force our children to be in situations they're super uncomfortable with. That's not healthy for them also.
Yep.
But we just want to teach them to be decent human beings.
Understand.
So you want to like explore more, find out what they're doing, how they're reacting to the things that they don't like.
Right, got it. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because like you said, right, like children are egocentric, and we might not know what we are doing, but yet the differences between behaviors from different child can be very, very different, right?
Yeah.
I guess that also depends on the upbringing and the environment in the family.
Exactly.
Right.
We pick up on all these based on how our families react to it. So if you have parents, family members who are understanding and accepting and respectful of each other, then chances are the child will be more likely to mimic that kind of behavior. A lot of times when somebody is hypercritical of others and very vicious towards things that they don't like, it's probably the same thing at home. Right? They probably have parents or grandparents that are like, yeah, you're so smelly, you're such a dirty boy. Go away, don't come near me.
And
right?
that makes sense.
So if an adult treats them that way, they don't see it as wrong to treat another child that way.
Yeah, and they pick it up automatically, right? Because they don't even know what's right and wrong.
Yeah, that's how they learn, right?
Right. Yeah, so you actually mentioned that, as a parent, right, we'll try to detect by listening to them. Okay, but what if the scenario it's that the children just don't really proactively talk about it,
They
right?
don't express
Like how
themselves.
can parents like create a very open, communicative way to encourage more communications? Yeah.
Okay.
To detect it basically.
I guess the thing is that you want to start creating this environment as soon as they can speak.
Okay.
Ideally, right? So that it's not just for this, it's for detecting anything else, right? Asking, how was your day? What did you do? Who did you hang out with? Right? And you also want to reciprocate. Mama went to work today. I had this for lunch, right? So generally, you want to create an environment where the family talks to each other, which is not always common. Right?
Yes.
So if your whole family doesn't talk to each other, you don't communicate, you don't share, it's not fair to expect the child to share.
Yeah, especially all in this digital era. I've been seeing children holding iPads everywhere.
But do you notice their mom is also holding the iPad?
Exactly. A smaller iPad. Usually their iPhone scrolling through Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like you see them at restaurants, like a mom or a dad with a child. The child is on the iPad, the adult is on the iPad.
Yep.
I mean, on the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a habit that is pretty difficult to break.
It is.
Yeah, because it
is.
seems like sometimes as an adult myself as well. I mean, I admitted,
Yeah.
I have to admit that. Sometimes like me and my girlfriend, we went out for dinner. Both of us will just be scrolling our phones and be like, and we don't talk.
Yeah.
And until one day, okay, my girlfriend finally cannot take it anymore.
So she lost it.
she lost it. She put her phone down. She asked me to put my phone down, and she'd be like, "Just imagine if both of us are doing this, what will be happening to our future children? Are we
Yeah.
gonna talk to each other?" Then only then I realized that, oh yeah, actually it's
True.
that
Exactly.
serious lah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense.
It has to be it's difficult because literally these gadgets are designed to hook us in, right? So we have to be very intentional about putting it away lah.
Understand. So coming from your experience, sorry, how long have you been in this industry?
Okay, so I've been a clinical psychologist for close to 6 years. Before that, I had 2 years of training where I did work with children. Before that, I was teaching special needs. So I think cumulatively, I've probably worked with, cumulatively, I've probably worked with children for about 10 years now.
10 years, right? Right. That's great. That's great. So, okay. So, in your 10 years of experience, right? Like, have you encountered any like very serious bullying cases that results in probably some consequences that we could never imagine?
Okay. So far, thankfully, because modern day parents are a lot more attentive, serious consequences physically, not a lot, right? So there's, I mean, I have heard stories where people get severely beaten up, but in terms of the cases that I've seen, it's a lot more emotional rather than physical. And the severe consequences typically are something like the child being asked to leave the school, the bullied child being asked to leave the school, because they say, because typically people who are bullied are just a bit different, right? And then somehow they don't have a healthy learning environment where the teachers are aware of their difficulties. So those are probably the more severe ones. But in the long term, a lot of the adult clients I see have a history of being bullied in childhood.
Right.
So the impact may not be so immediate in the sense that, okay, yeah, immediately you're not having physical injuries, or worst case scenario is you have to leave the school, you have to change schools, but most of the time you change classes and it's fine, or the bullies leave and it's fine. So the immediate impact doesn't look so bad. It's the long-term impact.
Understand. Understand. And what sort of long-term impact that we are looking at? Like, is there any examples?
Okay, so it's very interesting. A lot of the clients I work with who, for example, have severe eating disorders often have experienced some form of childhood bullying about their weight. I have clients who have very strong performance anxiety. They push themselves really hard until they burn out. And sometimes when you look back, they have a history of being told that they're dumb.
I see.
Being told that they're dumb by their peers. So a lot of times the emotional damage is related to what you were bullied on.
Wow. Actually, then a lot of things that we have done could have caused long-term distress to a lot of people.
Yes.
Right?
Sometimes you think you're just joking.
Yeah.
But you don't know how hurtful it can be to another person.
Right. So a very interesting point that you have mentioned, like body shaming, right? You're fat, you're not tall, why do you look so ugly? You know, and these are sometimes some of the adults, right? They would joke about it. Yeah, especially towards like children at times. Yeah, because sometimes we'll just be like, let's say CNY is coming, right? And some adults will be like, "Ayo, why you so fat one?"
Yeah.
And maybe to us it's fine. We know that it's joking because we are aware of the context, right?
But for a child,
they might take it very seriously.
And typically that's probably not the first time they heard it. They probably hear it a lot.
Yeah. I think this is also something that teachers, especially early childhood educators, right, will need to be aware of as well. Because at times it's like when we are teaching, right, sometimes we joke as well. And we just didn't know where is the line. Yeah. So like, is there any like any advice or any kind of like precautions that you think, especially as an early childhood educators, that we need to be very, very mindful of when it comes to this?
We want to be really careful about what we say to children, right? You don't want to use labeling words. You're dumb, you're fat, you're slow, right? It's the same way with compliments, right? So they say it's best to compliment efforts. You're working so hard, right? Good job on working so hard, rather than on characteristics like you're so smart, right? Because that can create problems in the future. So it's the same thing with things that you feel they can improve on, rather than you're so slow. How can I help you complete this? Right? What is your struggle? How is this difficult? Are you taking some time because you're having some problems, right? So focus on the behavior if you think that it's supposed to help them improve. Don't comment on anything that they cannot fix.
Understand.
Right? Like how a person looks.
Yes.
They cannot fix. Especially like people would say, oh yeah, weight, you can work off the weight. If it's a 5, 6, 7-year-old, are they going to the gym?
Exactly.
Would they know how to go to the gym?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like when someone commented on my height, right? Right. I'll just
What are
be
you
like,
supposed to do about that?
yeah, what am I supposed to do? Right? Am I supposed to wear high heels?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, understand. Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, the point that you have mentioned here is a very good one. Prevent using like words that are pretty negative to begin with, right? Because children just can't understand the context of it, right? So instead of saying that you are not smart, probably saying things like, what kind of difficulties are you facing in this question?
Yeah.
What kind of guidance do you think you need?
Exactly.
Okay, maybe children might not be able to answer
How
that.
can I help you?
Yeah, how can I help you?
Right?
Yeah, I think this is pretty important for a lot of early childhood educators as well, and also parents, right? Because I've seen parents that are pretty direct in terms of their communication. They communicated with their children as if they're adult,
Yeah.
right? Like, hey, why you so dumb, man?
Ideally, you wouldn't say that to an adult either, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Why can't you remember to close the door?
Yeah.
Like, are you so forgetful?
Yeah. Right?
You're so young.
You're so lazy.
Yeah,
you just can't be bothered.
So a lot of times it comes like mentally,
Mm.
right? And most of the time we misunderstood bully as being something that's very physical.
Yes.
Yeah, because honestly speaking, when we talk about bully, I would think of
Being beaten up.
being
right?
beaten up.
Mm.
Yeah, but actually that's a lot more than
True.
just using fists.
True. And like I think like with physical violence, it's a lot easier to monitor and control. Teachers can see when somebody's punching another child. There will be complaints.
Yeah.
So the chances of like being able to put a stop to it is faster versus emotional difficulties, right?
Yep.
Like bullying, like mean comments.
Yeah.
Mm.
Understand. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, talking about mean comments also, like a lot of I guess because in this digital age, right, I noticed that childrens are getting onto social media
Yeah.
way earlier than before,
Yeah.
and they might not know how to handle the comments
True.
on their posts.
True.
Right.
So cyberbullying has become a big
Cyberbullying.
problem.
Yeah. So have you had any cases like that?
I have, but as they get actually a number, a couple of cases. So predominantly it's not on their own social media. What I noticed with a few of the cases that I have worked with, it's like people create, this was years ago when we were on Facebook, people would create Facebook pages. I hate this person.
Yes.
This person is an idiot. Multiple cases actually have experienced that. So they create a club hating on people.
Yeah.
That's quite scary.
And it gets really out of control, and it's pretty scary because seeing your
is.
friends, like maybe certain personnel that you thought that they like you,
Yeah.
joining the group,
Yeah.
and you'll be like, oh man,
Right?
am I really that bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the days of blogs, there would be like long blog posts about like just ripping this person to shreds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Oh. And then you read something like that about yourself, it's traumatizing forever.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, with what you described, I think this happens very often in 2010 or 2009 ish, the era, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blogs and
Accidentally review our age already.
blogs and Facebook posts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in regards to that, like how did your client, right, of those cases eventually like kind of like walk out of it?
I think
Progress
it
from
takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of support, because a lot of times they start to internalize these messages, right?
Okay.
So if it seems to be that if they have better social support, good friends who say, you are not smelly or you are not stupid, look at what you did, right? If they have good social support from their parents, it helps a lot. And of course, actually finding ways to remove that danger. So now that's the good thing about social media now. There's a lot more work being done to safeguard users. So now you can report, you can block. It has gotten better in that sense, but you need to help your child enforce that. Right.
Got it. So a lot of support lah. Basically, a lot of social supports.
Yeah.
Yep.
No man is an island, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're alone, right? If without support, your brain tend to haywire. You think in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just go down to the rabbit hole really quickly, and
True.
things might go south from there.
When the only information you have is the information from the bullies, you don't have kind voices to contradict that information, that would be very tough.
Right. So speaking of support, right? Because because understandably, children spend quite a lot of time in kindergartens as well, in preschools, and their parents might not be with them all the time. So have you had any cases or any suggestions, right, when it comes to the collaboration between parents and teachers? Like, how can both parties work flawlessly to make sure that the children is being raised and well, and if their kid is the bully, how do they stop them?
That is a very important aspect of supporting your child, right? So I have worked with a lot of parents and teachers to try to manage that relationship, especially because I work with a lot of special needs children, right? So the teachers do need to get involved. I think first of all, it's very important for both sides to focus on accountability. Typically, the relationship sours when both sides will say, oh, no, it's because of what you do at home. No, it's because of what you do at school. It becomes a fight, right? A throwing of blame.
Yes.
So you want to think of it as we are working together. Whatever you struggle with at school, let me know. I'll see what I can do at home, and vice versa, right? So it's more of open communication. As a parent, if your child is the bully, be honest with the teacher. Hey, I'm concerned about these behaviors. He said these things. Could you help me keep an eye on how he's interacting with other children? If you notice anything, just let me know. Right? And then another thing is trying to come up with a consistent message. What is acceptable and what is not acceptable? So let's say at home, it's not acceptable to call your cousin stupid or push your cousin. But if at school, the teacher says, it's okay, kids being kids, then it'll be very hard to teach them that. Right?
Yeah. Because they have two kind of different standards.
Two messages.
Right?
Yeah. Or, I mean, it could be the same way the other way around. Often it is the same way the other way around. The teachers will enforce you don't do these things. And then at home, you just let them do whatever they want with their siblings and their cousins. Right?
Understandable.
So you want to agree on a message.
Yeah. So basically unifying the standards. That's one. Right. Number two is that, of course, initiatives from parents definitely is required.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess the tricky part of this is that because teachers, right, they have to deal with a lot of different children at once.
Yes.
Mental capacity, physical capacity, that could be an issue.
True.
And I think most important of all, it's that when it comes to having teachers to analyze and communicate with the parents, that could also be very tricky given that you're handling so many children at the same time, right?
That's very true.
So over here, actually, we have actually heard some better, not to say better lah, but also good suggestions as well when it comes to communicating. It's that usually a lot of early educators, they don't do logs. They don't record logs. And when I say logs, right, I'm not asking you to write an essay of the incident. No.
Just little observations.
Yeah, just a very quick pointers. Like, for example, let's say Alvin Lee, all right, easily grumpy during when he's hungry. Yep. And the method is basically as you progress, right?
Yeah.
If the same keyword appears over and over again, the teachers will just have to hand the log over to the parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And then basically that serves the purpose.
I do think these systems that you guys provide can be very, very helpful. Right? And then for teachers as well, I mean, I was a special needs teacher before, and we also keep those logs, but we did it manually because it was years ago. So I would have loved to have a system like yours where I can update and then look back. It feels like, okay, you have to do a little bit of work, but then it makes the rest of the future of your work a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because when you start to see something weird, you're like, wait a second, then you can go back.
Yes,
right?
yes. I mean, not necessarily that, you know, they will have to use our systems to do that. In fact, right now, you know, with your phone, yeah, you have your notes, right? In your
True.
iPhone, you open it up.
We used to have a notebook.
Oh,
And then sometimes the child comes back without a notebook. Then you have to give them a new notebook.
yes, yes. Honestly, the last time I've written with a pen, I think that was like almost like
Your
2 years
handwriting
ago.
will be so big.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's always the combination of, you know, using the latest tech,
Yeah.
right, to make your work more convenient and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to bully, I also have a question on this, right? Because you were a special needs teacher before this. Is there like a difference between the non-inclusive children and the inclusive ones in terms of the severity of bully?
Okay. I won't say that bullying does not happen at all in special needs, but it's very, very rare.
Very rare.
Yes.
Okay.
Versus I guess in a group of children who are neurotypical.
Okay.
Right? I guess the thing is that with people who are special needs, they experience what it's like, you know, to be different. They were probably the victims of bullying when they were in a different school. So typically also they are managing a lot of their own symptoms. They're managing being able to sit down because they have ADHD. They're managing getting used to noises, so they don't really focus so much on other people and judging other people. Whereas for neurotypical children, there is a lot of like there's more of a tendency of groupthink and thinking about who is alike and who is different.
Got it.
Right. So a lot of times that bullying happens to the people who are different.
Right. Okay. So have you had any cases whereby probably the neurotypical children bullies on the children
A
with
lot.
special needs? A lot, right?
It's very, very common. Very, very common. And that's because there's not enough education. Right? A lot of the kids don't know.
Understand. There are a lot of cases, and what do you know why? Like as in like apart from, you know, not having enough education, right? Like is there any other reasons behind it?
Education, and I think just this this idea that we should all be the same, and that if somebody is different, then there's something wrong with them.
Got it.
Right? And this is often reinforced by parenting as well. So it's usually not with negative intentions, but parents might say things like, you know, don't say these things, you'll sound weird, your friends won't want to hang out with you,
Yeah.
right?
Then it became a stereotype.
Yes, then it becomes like, oh, okay. So if people won't want to hang out with me, if I say these things, then I should shun whoever says these things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, got it. I believe that, you know, there's a lot of parents that in a way refuse to accept to have their child labeled, and might insist, you know, to have the preschool to actually have their child being grouped in the same class as the neurotypical ones. Like normally, what kind of things that they can do, or what kind of advice that you can actually tell them in order to, you know, guide them towards the proper way of doing so.
Proper way. Okay. Well, I think first of all, I would encourage them to diagnose, to assess and diagnose, get their child assessed and diagnosed. A lot of times what parents tell me is that they are worried about their child being labeled. And I'll say, yeah, okay, if they get assessed and they do have the condition, yes, they'll be labeled with ADHD or autism. But if they don't get assessed, they will still be labeled. They'll be labeled dumb. They'll be labeled lazy. They'll be labeled, I don't know, problematic.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So they will still get labeled. You're not helping them by avoiding it. And in fact, there are a lot of special needs kids who can adjust to a neurotypical environment as long as they know what's going on. So, for example, I have kids who have ADHD, and we work with the teachers to provide them with a separate space so that they can, move like a special hall pass, or even like the teacher will put them in charge of carrying the books back and forth from the staff room so that they get their energy out, right?
Yeah.
And it's also a great way to educate the other kids. Like, okay, do you know what ADHD is? This is what it's like. So this is why he needs something different from you, right? So like, for example, if you have a peanut allergy, you cannot touch peanuts, right? So you help to explain it the way a physical health issue would be, right? So then it's a 2-in-1. You help the child assimilate. You help the other children learn.
Yeah. Actually, I like what I'm hearing. As much as parent wants to prevent labelings to their child,
it'll happen anyway.
it doesn't help, right?
Yes, it will happen anyway.
In fact, it worsens the labels.
Yes.
Because at least, like, let's say if you have ADHD, right? At least you will not be labeled as naughty.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I noticed that back then, that was about like 20 years ago, when I was still in my early age.
Early age.
Right? Yeah. I remember a classmate.
Okay.
He was very, very active. And more often than not, he causes chaos in class. Like he flips the table. He screams a lot. Okay, I'm not sure whether if he's diagnosed as ADHD, just for clarification purposes. But I do believe that definitely
there's something that
there's
he's struggling
something in
with.
it. Yes. And back then my teacher wasn't really able to identify that. And normally we were told, don't mix with him because he's quite naughty.
Told by who? By teachers?
Teachers and some of the parents lah.
So actually adults are reinforcing,
correct,
ostracizing this person.
Yes. So speaking of this, right, do you work with teachers to kind of like provide them with trainings for things like this as well?
Yeah, we do.
Right.
We do with a lot of psychoeducation so that the teachers are able to spot signs and highlight it to the parents so that the parents can help.
I think it's pretty important because as we mentioned about parents, right, for parents, and they will have to be able to understand the reality, accept the fact, and make mental preparation and changes to really improve the situation. As for teachers as well, to basically equip them with the ability to really identify and at the very least know what to do, or if not where to seek help and advice from.
True.
Right?
A lot of times the early detection of neurodevelopmental difficulties come from teachers. It's the teachers who bring it up, because the kids at home you may not be able to observe as much because they're not socializing and there's no demands on them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you who are listening to us right now, if you make it this far, really thank you for that. So let's say if you are early childhood educator or a preschool operator that you would love to reinforce as well as to upskill your teachers in terms of spotting all these signs, feel free to reach out to Lavender. We will have her contact details at the description below, and most important of all, give it a like, share and comment, all right, because we want to make sure that our content in the Little Pot to reach out to as many educators or even parents, anyone who cares about the early childhood industry, to really know enough, right? So I think today we talked about a lot of things, like including things like why would someone become a bully, right? How to identify if a kid is a bully and what are the consequences of it. And I'm pretty sure for a lot of people who thought bullying is all about physical, we will now understand that the impact is way bigger than it is, right? And also all sorts of things that we actually need to do. But before we end our session, Lavender, I have a very interesting rapid fire session with you.
Okay.
All right. Rapid fire question. You have to answer it within 3 seconds.
Okay.
After I've talked about the question. All right. So you ready? Okay. Question number 1. What superhero do you want to be when you were a child?
When I was a child, I think Iron Man.
That's new because okay, honestly, rarely I have female friends that say they want to be Iron Man. Why?
I mean, like when I was a child, there wasn't a lot of female superheroes. Iron Man is rich. I don't want to be born with. I mean, you don't know if you have a superpower. Will that impact your physical health or something? I don't want that. I just want lots of money, and then I can use it to give myself superpowers that I can take off. Oh, but he had heart issues after that, right?
According to the story, he's an alcoholic at the end.
Oh.
And yeah, but never mind.
that's
Disregard
sad.
that part. Yeah, I think Iron Man's superpower is also something that I want even until now.
Money lah.
Money lah.
And intelligence. Money and intelligence.
Yes, intelligence. I really enjoyed the way how he shaped things. Right.
He's so creative.
Okay, so rapid fire question number 2. Okay. Assuming I'm a 5 years old,
Okay.
how do you describe your job to me?
Okay. I will say that, and I do have to do this. I help people with their feelings and with their day-to-day problems. I help them manage issues with friends, manage troubles with school, or manage troubles with their family.
Nice. And does the children understand what you are describing, or probably they just be like question mark?
They'll be like, okay, it's the lady who plays sand with me and asks me lots of questions. They don't mind because they like my sand.
Right.
So you always have the sand and toys.
Okay. Last rapid fire question. What makes you want to enter the psychology industry?
Okay, a lot of things. First of all, I do have family members with mental health difficulties, and this was a long time ago, and back then there wasn't much mental health support.
Yep.
I think back then it was just psychiatric help. So very early on, I was quite motivated by the fact that we need to build this in Malaysia. We need more of this in Malaysia. Another thing is that I moved around a lot as a child. So I always find it interesting to learn about people. I enjoy their stories. I get really immersed and really invested in my clients' life stories. So that's what I enjoy.
Right. Sure. Okay. Yeah. So you know what? Once again, Lavender, thank you for your time today. Right. I believe our listeners, definitely have benefited from the conversation today. And ladies and gentlemen, this is just the start. Right. I believe we have just touched a tip of an iceberg in regards to this topic, because there are more when it comes to children. So if you do want to see Lavender on our podcast again, right, do remember to like, share, subscribe, and reach out to Lavender for more information. Okay, Lavender, don't charge them lah. Cannot lah.
I don't know about that. We'll see. Depends on what kind of information.
All right. So once again, thank you for tuning into the Little Pod. And today with Lavender Tan, we learned about the topic of what if your kid is the bully. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of answers are there. So we do have a lot more podcasts coming up as well. So do remember to tune in to our Instagram, TikTok, YouTube channel as well. All right, to catch all those amazing podcasts coming up. All right, so once again, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.